We focus so much time on that sometimes we forget about ourselves. It's not that I've got this perfect, but it's something and a message that I really want to resonate with people because I'm somebody that has previously struggled with this. Hello and welcome to today's video. One of the most popular questions that I get asked is, how do I manage to balance my school, work life with everything outside of that? I'm going to be honest, it's a constant struggle that I still face today. And the reason why is that teaching requires a lot from you. It's such a rewarding job in the sense that I love teaching my subjects, passing on the knowledge, working with pupils, helping and supporting them. The rewards are fantastic. But with those rewards come a lot of demands, and it's the exact same for a lot of jobs. However, with teaching, it's not just the case of you walking inside the classroom, as you probably know, teaching your lessons and then walking away and that's it. A lot of teaching and what is part of the job happens outside of the classroom. And that's the part that I really found difficult when it came towards when can I actually switch off from work and make sure to have more of my home life balance. So this is going to be my conversation, my journey towards how I have been trying to develop this myself, and perhaps this might resonate with you, or some guidance that I'm giving might give you the resilience towards making sure you've got more of a clearer separation between your work and your home life. And one of the things that I have talked about in lots of my other videos is that actually I'm really firm with how much work I do on the weekends. And ever since halfway through my PGCE year, I decided that I would not do any work on a Saturday. The reason why is that I found myself constantly not only just doing work, but because I was doing it every single day, my mind wasn't having a chance to completely refresh from that. So I decided that Saturday would be my day off. I wouldn't talk about it, I wouldn't answer emails, I wouldn't go on my laptop, I would do nothing at all towards teaching. And that has always suited me because I feel like that day is the one day of the week I can do whatever I want. Now I know for a lot of people that might seem really difficult to achieve, and you might say, hold on a minute, how are you finding the time to have a complete day off? And that's because I've really worked towards developing effective organisation and kind of accepting some common truths behind teaching. So one of the most common truths is that your list is never ending. And I know this might sound quite daunting, but I'm somebody that is quite organised and I'm a perfectionist, and I want to make sure that everything is always done on time and to the best of my ability. And I love the idea, I don't know about you, of having a list that I can tick things off at the end of the day, and I feel like I've really achieved something. However, sometimes it's being really honest with yourself and saying that I'm not going to manage to get everything done today, and that's absolutely okay. However, that's not me saying at all that organisation is thrown out the window. It's learning to accept that you are constantly going to have a list of things that you are going to have to complete. And my Saturday is my chance to kind of remind myself that that's okay. It's okay that I still have things to do. I will get them completed and I will spend my time effectively. I also spend my Saturday spending time with friends, family, hobbies, so that I can really have that mentally refresh perspective when it comes back towards doing my work. However, I throughout the years have found it really a lot easier and a lot more comfortable behind not doing as much work from home as I used to do, because for me personally, I've always been the same, that I would prefer to stay in work a little bit later, a little bit longer, and do as much work as I can from my office or from my classroom. And that's because I know myself, I get really distracted the minute that I come home. The minute I come home, I, for some reason, automatically feel twice as more tired than I did before. I just want to kind of sit on the couch, watch a TV programme and just relax basically. And I know that I find it really difficult to keep with the motivation once I come home. So I tend to do a lot of my work. So I try to do my marking as much as I can, any phone calls that I need to make, any emails, all of those kind of outside things I try to get done at work. So that might be, for example, I go in earlier in the morning or I stay later in the evening. So I've really improved with that, and that's something that works for me. I don't know if that works for everybody based on their schedules, but the one thing that I've struggled with is that I think it's a lot easier to physically remove yourself from work. However, it's a lot more difficult to mentally remove yourself from the workplace. And like I've said, this is something that on a Saturday I started off by not just doing any work, but also asking friends, family, whoever I was with, that if I was talking about work a lot, to kind of remind me, as it wasn't helping me, because even though I was saying to myself, Saturday I'm going to have off, it wasn't helping me in the fact that I was still there talking about it, thinking about it, and the worry was still over me. So these are some things that I try to do in my evenings or my weekends to help me mentally as well switch off from work so I can really enjoy my homestyle balance. The first thing, and this is something that I still try to maintain today, is keeping up with your hobbies or the things you like to do outside of work. So whether that's exercise, whether that's something creative, who knows? But I think being able to physically switch off and do something that's completely different towards teaching really helps you actually to refresh your mind, because I don't think it's just about making sure you're not just making sure you're having more of a split from doing work to not doing work. I think it's also being able to maintain a mental shift, and doing something that has nothing towards doing teaching can actually really help. Now, one of the big hobbies that I've started to do again is create YouTube videos. Now, even though I'm talking about teaching, it's the actual activity that I like to do that allows me to completely switch off by worrying about the marking I've got to do, the planning I've got to do, and all those different things. That's just me. I've also taken up different types of exercises that I enjoy. I go bouldering. I've started some new creative hobbies, things that I can really focus on and get my mind off teaching and any of the worries that come behind this. So keeping up with your hobbies, don't forget about them. Your job shouldn't be the only thing that you have in your life, and I know it's probably a bit of a mantra that lots of people live by anyway, but I think teachers really struggle with this because of the demands of the job. But you've got to make sure to honestly remind yourself that things will get done, and as long as you are organised and effective with the time that you've got, you'll be fine. So when it comes towards that, the second advice that I would give when it comes towards how you can develop your home and work style balance is being organised, but making sure that you prioritise things that are important to do first. So what I mean by that is creating a checklist of things that essentially need to be done. Sometimes we can find ourselves creating a list of things that need to be done tomorrow, in a week's time, a month's time, and it feels like it's too much. Now, I always talk about there's no harm in getting ahead. That's absolutely great. I always try to do so myself. However, what I'm more referring towards is being mindful, like I've said, the list is always going to be there. I think that there's always going to be something that you are going to need to do as part of teaching, but it's reminding yourself of what things are essential right now and what things are more desirable. Don't feel like you've constantly got to be working towards being in that desirable element, because it is a job. You are doing the best that you can. As long as you are doing those things that are really essential in that moment in time, know that that is enough. And that I honestly think if you don't have that break away from work, that your mind isn't mentally refreshed in a sense to go and tackle that problem or tackle that task in the best way that you possibly can. My third piece of advice is making sure that you've got a routine that works for you. Now, I know lots of people that are watching these videos all are from different backgrounds, in the sense that my background is that I am a young teacher, that I currently rent, I only live 15 minutes away from work, and I don't have any children. For some people it might be that you have children, you've got a longer commute to have towards your workplace. Lots of different factors that might play into the fact of it makes it more difficult for you to spend less time away from work. My honest advice is, like I've said, is creating a routine that works for you and spending your time in the best way that you want to. I think that sometimes I put too much pressure on myself, that when it comes towards a weekend that I need to be doing something fantastic to make the most of my weekend. But actually reminding myself of there's plenty of time to do that. And reading into what my body kind of needs right now. Sometimes on a Sunday, I literally just need to have a lazy day to physically refresh myself. Some days I really want to mentally distract myself by going out of the house and meeting with friends. It's thinking about sticking towards a routine, but also doing things that you need in that particular moment, and not putting as much pressure on yourself that when you finished work, you've got to make the most of it, because we're all different in that sense. For some people, they would prefer to do one thing than the next person. It very much comes down towards personal taste. But not forgetting that you spend your time how you want to spend it and enjoying that time. I think that sometimes, like I've already said, I put too much pressure on the weekends of how I should be spending it rather than what I would like to be spending it doing. Of course, there's always going to be those things that you have to do on a weekend or an evening that we have to do. For example, it might be doing the washing up or doing a chore that you've been putting off for a long time. But what I mean is when you've really got that free time, whether it's only half an hour, spend it doing something you really enjoy. Maybe there's a program you've really wanted to watch on the telly for so long, but you feel like you haven't got time. Watch it. Maybe it's having a quick phone call with your friend that you haven't spoken to in a week. Make that phone call. Make the time. We have to, as teachers, make that time for ourselves, because if we don't deliberately make that time for ourselves to do the things we want to do, that's where we will end up spending too much time focused on our work. But my honest experience is that I do still struggle with this, and my honest opinion is with myself is that I struggle more with it mentally, because I don't always do things outside of work that are going to allow myself to mentally be focused on something that has nothing towards work. So it's always in the back of my brain. Hence why I've started to do more hobbies that I've never done before. So I started bouldering around about a year ago, something I've always wanted to try, but I've always been like, I don't have the time for it, but I do have the time for it. I've got to make that time and be organised with it. And the same as in this summer, I've decided to take up something like crochet. Whether I continue that or not, it's something that I can try out and something that is completely different towards my usual work time. I know that this is something that people really struggle with, and I'm not going to sit here and say that it is easy, because we all have different routines and different experience. But my honest advice is that, like I've previously said, we have to make the time for ourselves, because it's important for us mentally. It's important for anybody to mentally have the time away from work. And actually, when you are working in a job that is so mentally, physically and emotionally demanding, being the best teacher you can be is being the best person that you can possibly be, if that makes sense. So a big part of teaching is we are quite selfless. The job, you know, we're not doing things, hopefully. Teachers aren't doing things for us. We've gone into a job because we're trying to help people out. So we're trying to help the pupils, we're trying to teach them. And a large part of our job is going up and beyond in order to create the best experience for the pupils that we teach. And we focus so much time on that sometimes we forget about ourselves. In your PGCE year, you might find this difficult because the overwhelming experience perhaps of assignments and everything being new. It will come with time, but even so, it's finding some time, whether it's half an hour each night, whether it's a day a weekend, whatever routine works for you is really important. Like I've said, I struggle with this. It's not that I've got this perfect, but it's something and a message that I really want to resonate with people, because I'm somebody that has previously struggled with this. It's kind of it from me. That's kind of how I maintain that balance. I try to physically remove myself from work when I come home by making sure that I kind of do those extra things whilst I'm at work. That works for me. It might be for you that you do it in a different place. So it might be a different room in your house. That's the first thing. And also, like I've said, prioritising those things you want to do outside of work and making the best of whatever time you have. I hope that this video has been somewhat useful, maybe more of a resonating message that you're going to give yourself moving forward. And I look forward to seeing you next time. Goodbye.